Hi! Welcome to week 5 of the Alchemy of Healing course. I'm here in my office, ready to talk to you about a topic that honestly is hard for a lot of people. It's hard, and it messes with people a little bit when I do my workshops in person, or when I'm talking with my clients one-on-one. This is one of those topics that it's difficult. And to me, what that means is that it's really, really, really important. So, expressing needs and desires, we're going to talk a little bit about communication today, about what it is that you want, how you figure out what you want, how you then communicate that, then how you receive. That's a big step. And a lot of us women, and some men, of course, have issues with receiving. And what that means in this kind of cycle of desire that I like to use this model of this cycle of desire, which is knowing what you want, expressing and communicating what you want, receiving it, actually taking it in, digesting it, and then being grateful and fulfilled and satisfied. So if we use the metaphor kind of just of food, of feeling that initial hunger pain, and knowing that you want to eat something, maybe it's a craving, maybe it's just, I'm thirsty. Having that initial desire, that initial sensation in your body, and then translating that into something that's real and tangible in the world. So again, with this metaphor of food, I want a glass of lemonade. So I'm thirsty, but particularly for something a little bit tart, sweet. I just have this desire come up in my body. And then I have to communicate that, right? I have to find a place where I can get it and then communicate it to the right person, or go out and purchase it at the grocery store, or whatever it is, to actually go out into the world and become the person who can have that thing that I want. So I've got to be able to communicate it, or at the very least communicate it to myself and acknowledge it in myself and approve of it in myself. And at every step along the way here, there's issues that come up, right? There's, we'll get into those as we go. So that step of knowing what we want, asking for it, communicating it, even if it is just to ourselves, and then receiving it. So actually taking that glass of lemonade into our field, into our system, and drinking it and receiving it. And that part, that step, believe it or not, again, has a lot of issues and conditioning and connotations around it that make it difficult to receive and difficult to actually just take that sip. So we'll talk about that. And then the last one is being grateful and passing the joy that you get from receiving that thing that you wanted, passing that forward, passing that on. The joy, and that's actually how you give back to the world, is that when you receive something that you really wanted, that joy and gratitude and love and expression that you express after you've gotten it is the thing that completes the cycle, first of all, and it also is all the thanks that anybody needs. Like, you don't have to repay somebody over and over and over for something if your gratitude is present, if your fulfillment, like you've actually taken it into your bones and integrated it and used it and transformed because of it. And that's really why desire is so discombobulating for people, is that it is about transformation. It's about pinpointing this thing that we want, that we know that in order to have it, we're going to have to change a little bit. And in that change, it might be uncomfortable. We might have to learn a new skill. We might have to put ourselves out there in a way that we never have before. We might have to let something go in our personality. We might have to experience humiliation or rejection or shame in order to ask for the thing that we want, or be willing, at the very least be willing. We might have to be willing to hear no and ask again at another time. So all of these things are coming into play when it comes to desire. and we're changing into somebody new. We're changing into the person who can have the thing that we want. So all of those steps are really important. And this is something that comes up in relationship a lot because we're all human. We all have desires and we all have needs. We're organisms, we're natural, living, breathing organisms that want to go towards things that feel good and away from things that don't feel good and or that are dangerous, right? So we want to move towards the thing that is going to bring us fulfillment. And the thing usually that brings us fulfillment is change and growth and experiencing something new and novel. And so in relationship, basically the biggest conflicts that happen in relationship is that there's one person is experiencing one desire, somebody else is experiencing something that might be a bit different or perceived as different. And then there's conflict, right? It's like, I can't get what I want and you can't get what you want at the same time. So it's this zero sums game going on where either I win or you win, and it can't be both of us. But I don't think that that's actually the only option going on. I actually have a deep belief that all desire is co-arising, which means that the desires, it's not about compromise, but it is about expression, and it is about actually fully coming in and embodying that desire and expressing it, and then trusting enough that you can get the thing that you want, and that there is a way, and that almost like positive spin on it, instead of what we tend to do is not ask, because it's like, what's the point in asking? I'm not going to get what I want anyway, right? We've all been there. So I'm just going to sit on it. I'm going to withhold. I'm going to get resentful and angry and bitter and choked up because I don't believe I can have the thing I want. And it can be anything super simple, like a meal, all the way up to I want to get married, or I want to have this experience, or I want to have another baby, or I want to go back to school, or like these big desires that come up in our experience, all the way down to just the little ones, like I want to be touched in a certain way, or I want to eat this food, or have this experience, or go to this movie. Okay, so this is where communication is really important, and it starts with knowing what you want. Biggest thing. And honestly, I ask a lot of people what they want on a day-to-day basis. It's part of my job is to figure out what it is that you want and how we can get it, right? Because I can't help you if I don't know what you want to accomplish. Like, do you want to be out in the dating world? Do you want to get married? Do you want to have better health? What is it? Like, what are our goals? What are the things that you want to experience? And what are the sensations behind that? What are you hoping to feel once you get that thing? So we start there. And the best practice, so this is kind of a little bonus practice of what you can do to start out here, is to write a list, make a page of 1 to 50, and write out 50 things that you want, big to small, in your life. Doesn't matter how trivial they seem, doesn't matter how outlandish they seem. What are 50 things that you want? And that will get you into the practice of actually starting to know yourself and figure yourself out, and get into relationship just with you and your own desire. Because that, if you don't know what you want, it's really hard for anybody else to give you what you want, right? So that's what that has to be the first step. So make that list, write it out, and then pick something on there and start to pick something that feels a little bit racy. Maybe a little bit of shame comes up around it, a little bit of sensation around it, and really start to practice giving yourself approval. So I again believe that if the desire is there, it's there for a reason. And that reason again is transformation, is change, is letting go, is building, is becoming the woman who can have that thing, becoming the man who can have that thing. So pick something that feels like you don't have approval for and start to practice, okay, this is why I want this, and then go a layer deeper. This is why I want this, go a layer deeper. This is what I want to experience, go a layer deeper. So if I want a trip, it's because I want adventure. It's because I want to feel alive. It's because I want to fill in the blank. And then you can kind of get an idea of what that underlying root thing is that you want to experience. And we can open up other avenues of ways that you can experience that same sensation. Hopefully that makes sense. And then after that approval stage is set in place, it's okay, so now I have to communicate this with approval. So, and this comes into the partnership dynamics in relationship quite a bit, where, okay, if I could have 100% what I want, and you could have 100% what you want, let's just have that dialogue. So without having to buy into anything, just in a situation where it feels like there's conflict, if you could have it all your way, what would you have? Okay, that makes sense. And you listen. You actually listen to what it is that they want, as if you were their lawyer or their advocate, right? And then you switch roles. So what would I have if I could have 100% of what I want? Okay, so now we start to know each other, and we understand each other. And instead of getting defensive about it or worried or scared, it's like, okay, I just need to know, I just want to know what it is that you want, what is the need that you need met. And then it opens up the dialogue too, to be able to problem solve creatively, that word. You get to think outside the box and think of how can we both have 100% of what we want and help each other get there, and be fully expressed and have the thing that we want. Because you know what? Often, I would say 90% of the time when we do this exercise, it's not even that you really want the thing. You just want to be seen in for who you are and what you want, and to have that approval and that attention on you. I know for me, it's not even really about the desire half the time. It's about expressing myself and expressing the thing that I want. So even that exercise in itself can be like, okay, now I'm in a place where I can compromise with you better because I've communicated what it is without any kind of bias or disapproval or issue. I've just fully let you see me for who I am. And it's scary, it's vulnerable, but it's like the most satisfying thing. So I really, really, really recommend making that a practice with your partner, with your friends, with whoever that you might encounter some conflict with or some resentment around, which, I mean, happens to all of us because that's part of the human condition, right? So now that we've expressed this, this is 100% what I want, we've communicated it. Now, let's say the person is like, okay, I want to give you that thing. So for example, let's say I said, I want this really complicated order at Starbucks. This isn't even as complicated as you can get from Starbucks, but this is my order. I like grande, chai latte, half sweet, extra foam, skinny. Okay, so let's say that I communicate that to the barista. Okay, so the barista is going to make it, and the barista is really good at making that. So, and the barista wants to give me what I want because I've ordered it, and that's our exchange, right? And that feels good. That feels good to be able to provide a service and give somebody what they want exactly how they want it. It doesn't feel good to give somebody something that they half want or that they don't really want, because you can tell, right? When somebody receives something and they're like, kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, this is okay, it doesn't feel as good. Like, the reason we like giving gifts is because they feel good to give, especially when the person really wanted that thing and really is going to find usefulness or joy or pleasure from it. So we don't want to deny ourselves that pleasure and that joy, and we don't want to deny other people that pleasure and that joy. So that's why receiving is so important. And so there's a few situations though that can happen. I can get that chai latte back and it can be perfect. And then I can just shower that barista with love and gratitude and be like, thank you so much. This is exactly what I wanted. You've made my day, type of thing. I'm going to drink this and savor it and it's going to be great. Now we both feel good. That's actually all of that desire cycle is now complete. Okay? Whereas, let's say the barista is a new person and she forgets to make it half sweet. She makes it full sweet. And so I take a sip and I can tell right away. So this is where we might have stuff come up in us, right? Because it's like, oh, like she didn't get it right. Like what's wrong with her? She wasn't paying attention. Did I not communicate it right? Is it something wrong with me? And then we go into all of these stories inside of ourselves of what happened there. Like, why can't I get what I want? I never get what I want. And those stories can back all the way back up to childhood of like, nobody pays enough attention to me and I never get what I want and I'm always getting like half of what I want and da-da-da-da-da, whatever the stories are. So when that happens, usually we go into resentment and we complain, or we just like don't say anything to the barista, but we complain to our friend after, or it just ruins our day, or something happens that doesn't feel good, right? So that desire cycle doesn't feel complete. Like we're definitely not receiving it well and not grateful for it. So what we have to do in those situations is make what I call an adjustment. So an adjustment is, I'm sure you've heard this before, you hear this kind of in the corporate world or in the leadership world, is whenever you're giving any kind of criticism or like constructive criticism or any kind of just feedback, you do the sandwich, right? So the criticism is in the middle and then there's two positives on the other side of it. And this is like a really good tool for anybody, for kids, for partners, for coworkers, anybody. And it's good for you too as a practice because it trains you to see the good. And it trains you to see double of the good for every bad, right? Because there's always good. There always is. And we just are very trained to see what's wrong and we're not trained to see what's right. So we're retraining ourselves to see the good in the situation. And so in this situation, it's like the barista took the time and the effort, and I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate that she did it so fast, and that she, whatever the positive you can find out of it. Just really make it a practice. Might take some effort at the beginning because we're not used to it. But you figure out two good things that she did right, that the barista did right, or that your partner did right in the situation. Two really good ones that are genuine. And then you slip in the adjustment in a very approving way. So you could say, like, I love how fast you made this, and that you took the time with it, and that you're taking the time to learn how to do this for me and provide this service for me. I really appreciate that. And next time, or can I have a new one that's half sweet? Or next time, can I have it half sweet? Whatever it is that you want the adjustment to be. Okay? So when we say it with lots of approval, with no blame, with just like this is the thing that I know that I want and I'm expressing it and I have approval for myself for wanting that. Okay? So this changing is actually, it seems so simple and it seems so, kind of obvious, but it's life changing. To know what you want and to be able to communicate it with approval, life changing, because then you start to actually get what you want. Then life starts to be more fun and more pleasurable, and just you start to transform and grow, and then you can ask for more and more and more and more and bigger and bigger and bigger things, and you can actually take those in. Okay, so feeling grateful and having gratitude and passing that joy on just completes the cycle, and it's actually all the repayment that anybody needs. And I know that we as women especially, but again, men too, are very much conditioned that it's like, okay, if I let you give me this, then I'm going to have to repay you back later. Or there's like some covert like under the radar thing going on where if you give this to me, then I have to give this to you, and there's this transaction going on that neither of us are talking about, but it's happening under the radar and I just don't want to be a part of it, so I'm just going to completely shut down even receiving anything. And so, and a common example of this is compliments. So it can be partly a self-esteem issue, which we've talked about in the previous weeks, of not being able to take a compliment. Or it could be like, I don't want to have to give you back a compliment. I don't want to have to pay you back. Or, yeah, I just don't believe you. But when we don't receive a compliment well, we miss that chance for connection. So that person is going out of their way to connect with you and to tell you something that they want you to know that they appreciate about you or that they admire about you. And the most generous thing that you can do for yourself and for them, and again, it completes that desire cycle, is to actually receive it and be like, thank you. Thank you for noticing that. That feels really good to receive. It can be as simple as that. And to really take it in and acknowledge it instead of brushing it off and being like, oh, this old thing, or oh, like you should have seen me yesterday. When you brush it off like that, you actually miss that point of connection and intimacy. And when you're doing that constantly, all day, no wonder you're lonely and tired and sick and not happy, because you're missing all these chances for connection. And really, we're humans that have limbic systems and that have social needs, and we need connection. And we need it consistently. It's like a food or a nutrient that we need. So we have to make sure that we're actually receiving the nutrient of social connection. And that's one of the ways that you can do it. So, I mean, this is a topic that I could talk about forever. And it's really, like I said, it's really, really important. But let that sink in and of itself. And if you have any questions, shoot them my way. We could spend an entire session just talking about desire if you want for your free session. This is a topic that I like to go in really deep with. I recommend Danielle Laporte's work and her desire mapping if you want to get really into desire, which I do recommend because I do think it's one of the most important things. And I think I mentioned this before, that desire and fear are like two sides of the same coin, right? Because whenever a big desire comes through sensation in your body, fear is right behind it. Because fear is the thing that's saying, oh, whoa, 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 like you can't have that thing. You've never gotten that thing in the past. Don't get your hopes up. That's too much. Or you're not enough, and like telling you all of these stories on the back end of it in an an honest and innocent attempt to keep you safe. But we have to be aware of it so that fear isn't running the show and desire is actually leading, and that we're friends with fear and we're friends with our boundaries and we're friends with all of the things that are going on because we're aware of them and we're in relationship with them, so that desire can actually lead, because it's the only thing that actually is fulfilling, and it's the only thing that actually can lift us out of anxiety and depression and funks that we get in. We get in them because we stop believing that we can have the thing that we want. We all want something. We all want little things and we all want big things. That's just a byproduct of being human. I'm sorry. And I'm not sorry, because it's also the most fabulous, amazing thing ever when you start getting what you want, and it's totally, totally possible. So, for your homework this week, what you're going to do is, and this is going to be a shorter video because this is such a heavy topic, so you might have to watch this video a couple times to really let all of this sink in. I know I've studied this and practiced it and played with it and screwed it up over and over and over again. So if this is the first introduction that you've ever had to this concept of desire, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be heavy. If it isn't and you want more, definitely there's so much more resources that you can look into. And then I can help you out with. Just shoot me an email. So for our practice, what we're going to do, especially in our relationships, in our communication, we're going to turn our complaints. We're going to notice when we're complaining, and we're going to turn those complaints into desires. So the most common example I always give is the complaint is I'm cold. Okay, I'm not really actually cold right now. I'm actually quite warm, but that would be the complaint. I'm really warm right now. So if I'm warm right now, I'm wearing this big heavy sweater. What's the desire is actually to cool off, right? I want to feel cooler. I want to feel air on my face. I want to feel, so that's the desire. I want to feel expanded. I want to feel fresh. I don't want to feel like hot and constricted. I want to feel expanded. So those are the desires around the sensations. Maybe part of that too is I want to go for a walk outside. That's a desire. So under the complaint of I'm hot are all of these desires. And it's our job to sniff those out and then communicate them. And then in this case, I can solve my problem on my own. Maybe I need help solving it from somebody else in other cases, and I have to communicate it with them and be vulnerable with them and tell them what it is that I actually want and need, which is, again, takes practice because it's hard to be vulnerable. It's a lot of sensation in the body. It brings up this fear around being rejected and fears around humiliation and being seen and having attention on us. So we really want to turn that complaint into a desire, communicate it the best that we can, make that a practice, and write it down in the positive. And again, like I said, we're not used to looking for the positive. We're used to looking for the negative, right? So if we start to look for the positive and train ourselves to look for that positive spin on the complaint, the desire underneath it, then it feels better to communicate with us. So we have more positive interactions with other people, we have more connection with other people, more social intimacy, and that's an actual nutrient that we need. So communicate, write down that complaint, turn it into a desire, communicate it with somebody, practice with somebody you trust first that isn't going to judge you or isn't going to laugh at you, and if they do, you don't care. Practice with somebody like that first, and then you can work your way up to other people where it's more scary. And then if and when you do end up getting the thing that you want, expressing lots of gratitude and paying that forward and actually taking it in and being like, I deserve this and I'm going to enjoy this, and then showing that gratitude and that happiness and passing that forward and doing it genuinely. So that's your homework for this week. And next week, we're just going to have a nice light week talking a little bit more about the body and how to support the body. And you're doing such a good job. I'm really proud of you. You've done a lot of work so far. Keep going. And, this is life-changing, groundbreaking stuff. So keep going. Really proud of you. Talk to you soon.